Everyone ready? All good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, Rodney Harrison, Chief of Department. Before I get in my remarks, the information I'm going to provide is preliminary, is subject to change, and is currently being investigated by our Force Investigation Division. But this is what we have at this time. A little bit today, after 4 o'clock p.m., a uniformed officer assigned to Highway 2 stopped a gray Jeep Cherokee, which was traveling eastbound on the Belt Parkway in the vicinity of the Bay 8th Street exit. When the officer approached the vehicle, that same male sped away, traveling eastbound. The officer followed the car and positioned her unmarked car in front of his vehicle. The male then rear-ended the officer's car in the vicinity of the Verrazano Bridge and continued east, driving on the Belt Parkway without stopping. The officer requested backup on a department radio, and with the assistance of an additional highway unit, they pulled the vehicle over approximately 200 yards east of the Bay Parkway Avenue entrance. Once the vehicle was stopped, the driver, a 65-year-old male who was the sole occupant of the vehicle, exited the Jeep and advanced towards the officers with a gun. The officers exited their vehicle and gave numerous verbal commands for the male to drop the gun. The subject continued to advance towards the officers, at which time the officers fired multiple rounds at the individual, striking him several times. They immediately began to render aid to the male and requested an ambulance. EMS transported the male to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced deceased. The officers were also transported to a local hospital for an evaluation. The suspect's firearm was recovered at the scene. This investigation still remains active. I'll take any questions at this time.
Does the male have any prior arrests?
I'm going to have Anthony Marino talk about some of the steps that he's learned in the investigation. Anthony?
There's a picture of the
gun
firearm.
that was recovered.
You guys tweet the picture?
We'll send it out.
So far, what we learned in the investigation is that
Can you step up to the mic, please?
so far what we learned in the investigation is that the male does have prior arrest history, 7 prior arrests at this point. Still more investigation to be done with that. Mostly vehicular crimes in his past.
Were any words exchanged during all of this? Did he say anything?
The officers, like I stated, stated several times for the subject to put down his firearm.
Did he say anything during all of this?
It's still under investigation.
Do you have an understanding for why he refused to be pulled over in the first place? Was there anything in the vehicle that you found, or was there a warrant?
So, once again, it's still preliminary. The reason why he went to the back of his car and pulled out a firearm, we still don't know the answer to that at this time.
I guess, I'm sorry, Chief, before, like at Bay 8, when she tried to pull him over the first time and he refused and then he rear-ended her, why do we have is there a hypothesis for why he wouldn't?
Well, I will say this, he was speeding, which is the reason for the initial stop. Regarding why he would not stop, we don't have the answers to that question.
Where is the highway close? Which exit is it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I said from which exit to which exit is closed?
So it's on the eastbound, on the Belt Parkway. So it would be somewhere between the Verrazano Bridge and this exit right here. So maybe 86 and the Verrazano Bridge.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions?
Chief, the video that has been circulating, the various different videos. I mean, it was busy. It was rush hour. A lot of cars on the belt.
Yeah.
I understand. I mean, there's nobody else. There were no civilians injured in any of this. Can you talk a little bit about the danger that was on the belt today? And what I guess we're lucky that this is the result.
Yeah, listen, it's a dangerous situation, but this is what we do in the New York City Police Department. We protect people, but those that choose to carry guns, we hold them accountable. unfortunately, it happened to be a negative ending, but we did what we had to do to stop the threat.
Chief, can you go over one more time the sequence to how he grabbed his gun, where he got it from, what the officer was doing when he did that?
Sure. So once the highway officer pulled her car in front of his vehicle, our subject, who was the sole occupant, got out of the car, went to the back seat of his car, and pulled out this firearm. That's when the officers took cover, asked him several times, verbal demands to put his gun down, at which time he started approaching the officers with the gun in his hand.
Aimed or down?
At the time, we believe it might have been aimed, but it might have been aimed up and still came down back and forth. So it was more of up and down type of movement from our subject involved.
Was he making any verbal threats or anything?
Still under investigation, sir.
Okay, last question.
Do you have
Anybody?
BWC footage of this from any of the officers? Who was there?
I'm sorry.
Do you have BWC footage on this?
Anthony?
Both officers did activate during it. That did capture the firearms discharge.
All right.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.